Welcome to Gift of Life, the Organ Transplant podcast. These are the stories of those who have received, given, and who are waiting for the gift of life, organ transplantation. Now here's your host and heart and kidney recipient, BJ Odom.
Welcome to the Gift of Life, the Organ Transplant podcast, where we explore the extraordinary world of organ transplantation. Each week we share inspiring stories and introduce you to remarkable individuals sharing their own transplant stories. Be sure to support the podcast by leaving a 5-star review and subscribing on your preferred podcast platform. Have a transplant story to share or have comments about the podcast? Just email us, giftoflifepodcast@gmail.com. Again, that's giftoflifepodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget to connect with us on Facebook, Gift of Life, the Organ Transplant Podcast. This is BJ Odom, you know, the guy with more parts than a chicken nugget. My new memoir, packed with laughs, heart, and the unbelievable true story of survival you've heard us talk about right here on the Gift of Life podcast. Get your copy today. More parts than a chicken nugget, available on Amazon. As we welcome you to episode 119. Today, we're sharing a unique story of love that began after transplant. You may remember Andrea McConaughy from episode 108 as she prepares to celebrate an incredible 30 years with her heart transplant. In this episode, we hear from her husband, Rob, who met Andrea after her transplant, fell in love, and soon found himself learning what it means to support and care for a transplant patient. It's a heartfelt conversation about love, resilience, caregiving, and building a life together through every challenge and triumph. I think you'll be inspired by this story. We'll meet Rob coming up next. Rob, welcome to the podcast. So excited about hearing your story with Andrea. So as we kick things off, as always, why don't you just start out by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So again, Rob, and I grew up out on the West Coast, spent some time in the Marine Corps, which is actually when I met Andrea. In hobbies, I enjoy outdoor stuff, fishing, flying, actually private pilot. And Andrea and I love traveling and just retired last year. So Andrea and I are traveling more than ever. So
that is awesome. Now, you know, we usually talk to people about transplants and sometimes we talk about caregivers. And I thought this would be kind of a different approach to the whole thing because we had Andrea on about a month or so ago and she talked about her heart transplant. But after she had her heart transplant, which I really find this interesting, that you guys met and got married post-transplant. You know, most people, you know, like caregivers are there from day one and all through the surgery and everything. You kind of came in like after everything had already happened. And to me, I guess maybe I should ask my wife, would you have married me if you knew that we were going to go through all these things? And I don't know what her answer would actually be. Hopefully it would be yes. But because that's the premise of the interview. For everyone out there listening, this is what I'm trying to get at. So let's just start out right there. How did you and Andrea first meet?
Yeah. So, and that's a really good point, BJ. And keep in mind too, Andrea got her transplant when she was 26 years old. So I think a little bit younger than average. But yeah. So I was in the Marines. I was stationed out in California, and this is back in the 90s. So back in the time of AOL chat rooms and all that good stuff. And we literally just met each other in a chat room, just started talking, nothing romantic, just talking. And I was sharing stories about being a Marine, and she was telling me about life in Florida on the other side of the country. And that's how it started. So really innocently. And, that kind of grew from chatting when we'd see each other online. And then one day I said, hey, can I give you a phone call? And she's like, sure, let's talk. So I called her, and I don't remember the exact time, it was sometime in the evening. And we talked for hours. I mean, probably 3, 4, 5 hours. And I just kind of felt like I was talking to my long lost best friend. We connected on so many different levels. And so that started a whole next phase of our relationship. Then we would talk. And again, this is back in the time before unlimited minutes and all that good stuff. So it was a bit expensive, but we did that. And then this, went on for a few months. And one day we were talking and I said, hey, why don't you come on out to California and we'll hang out. And so I'm thinking, oh, that'd be a nice next step. And she says, are you crazy? I'm not going to fly across the country to some strange guy, that I'm like, but we know each other, And so we talked a little bit more. So we agreed I would fly out to see her. She lived in Orlando at the time. And so I'd fly out to see her and we just kind of see what happens. And I still remember, BJ, to this day, getting off that airplane and walking out up to the gate and seeing her. And she said, I'll be in a red dress. She just was stunning in this beautiful red dress, and she had some balloons, and I'll never forget that day. And, on the plane ride out, I was feeling really awkward. I'm like, gosh, what am I doing? I'm flying across the country. This girl I've never met. And, but boy, when I saw her, all that went away. All that just kind of went to the side. And we hugged, and it was just like, again, the whole like best friend, like this is meant to be. I just always had that kind of feeling in the back of my mind. And so that's kind of how it all started. And, bringing up the transplantation thing, she brought that up to me early on. I remember very early on when we were kind of getting to know each other and telling our stories. And she told me that story, and, I was probably a bit naive, I think is the right word. I'm like, okay, heart transplant. All right. Well, didn't know anything about it, had never, known anyone with any kind of transplant. So I just accepted it at face value. I'm like, well, she's here and, she's my age and we've got a lot in common. So, it was never, ever a thing of like, oh my gosh, she's got a heart transplant. What does that mean? At that point in the relationship, it was just part of who she was and didn't define who she was, but it was just part of who Andrea was.
So then you met and everything seemed to go well. Now, again, see, this story is almost as wild as some of the transplant stories. Believe me, a man in California finds a woman in Orlando, Florida, and they communicate. He goes out and meets her. Now, did she have a bunch of, her girlfriends around with guns and weapons and everything in case you were a crazy man, or how did that all work out?
No, but I had already heard stories about her mom and especially her dad and the protective parents that they were. And so no, it was nothing like that. It was just, honestly, BJ, it was just like this mutual connection of, and again, not in a real, like, I'm not trying to make it sound like, oh, it was like the love of my life. It was just this bond and this connection. And, I was in my 20s, BJ. I was a Marine. I was like living the single life, doing my own thing. I hadn't even given a thought about who I was going to be with or the future or family, kids. Like that was nowhere in my thoughts. And so really it was just kind of step by step, and this thing grew over time. And there came a point where I was getting out of the Marine Corps, and I was like, I want to be with this woman, and she wanted to be with me. So of course, here we are, 3,000 miles apart. And so I tried to talk her into moving to San Diego, but she had a good job already in Orlando. And she's like, no, I love it here. I think you'd like it. Why don't you come to Orlando? I'm like, okay, why not? Let's give it a go. And made the move cross country. A little nervous about that, of course, but made the move, trusted in the whole thing. And not long after that, I asked her to marry me. I'd met her parents a couple times, and I met some of her extended family, and of course other friends and stuff. But I knew, BJ. I don't remember the exact day, but I just knew that this was my match. This was my forever person. And it sounds kind of corny to say that now, but looking back, it was so clear, so crystal clear at the time.
Well, like myself, even with my heart transplant, they gave me the heart. It was a perfect match. And, it started without even being electric shocked or anything. So I always felt this was meant to be, just as you two getting together and getting married was always probably in the cards, and it all worked out the way it was supposed to.
And luckily I was paying enough attention to the signs absolutely. Like the universe said, hey, here's this person for you, and vice versa. you better pay attention. So that's kind of how the whole thing started. And again, it's strange now looking back on it. I mean, we've been married, BJ, for going on 26 years in August, and we've known each other for over 28 years. So now the transplantation topic is just a part of our life and our routine. But back then, it was something that would come up every so often. She'd be like, "Oh, I have to go get some blood work," or "Oh, I have to go get an echo to check up on my heart." But I mean, that was it. Like, it wasn't at that stage of our relationship. It was just this kind of new, interesting, different thing about her. But again, it didn't define her at all. I mean, she was who she was, and she'd always told me that this heart transplant, the whole point of it was to give her a second chance at life. Right? It's to go live your life, and this is what she was doing. She had moved to Florida on her own, was working at a great job, had friends, and had now met me, and live your life. That's the whole point of it. So again, early on, it was nothing but a positive, just again, a big part, but a part of Andrea.
Now, as time went on and you learned more about, heart transplants and transplants, because I mean, I want to say, yeah, we get the transplant so we can live on, but there are many ups and downs in the transplant world for many of us. Now, when did you start to realize that, the transplant did make her a little different, or there were things like you were more susceptible to germs? And, when COVID came along, obviously a lot of us transplant people really kind of like shut down, almost like, oh, I don't want to, catch this new disease that's out there. So how did the steps go? I mean, when did you get to know more and more about, the journey you were in?
Yeah, for sure. I think, so as soon as I moved out there, I would go to her appointments with her. And I believe at that time she was I think she was going every 6 months, if I recall correctly. So every 6 months she'd go to her transplantation doctor, and, we'd make a day out of it. And so I would go and I would listen. And my mindset was, I don't know anything about this, so I'm going to learn. I'm just going to keep my ears open. I'm going to learn. And Andrea was the expert, right? She'd lived through it. So at that point in our relationship, it was all about just kind of paying attention, learning, maybe asking some questions. But I don't think it was until, I'm trying to think of when the first time. So certainly we had our first child in 2002. So we'd been married a couple of years. And so we went to her regular transplant appointment, and she said to her doctor, "Hey, I want to get pregnant." And he said, "Oh, okay, well, that's a possibility, but here's some things we need to do." I'm not going to get into all the medical stuff, but there were some things with some of her medicines that had to be either adjusted or reduced. She had to have, extra care during the pregnancy. It was considered high risk. And I think that's when it really hit me, BJ, that like, oh, wow, like this isn't a thing of like, oh, you had our heart transplant and then second chance at life and on you go. Like, this is like it's like a journey, right? It's like it's a marathon, and the transplant is not the end of that process. It's kind of the beginning, right? So it kind of hit me then. I'm like, oh yeah, this is pretty serious. And so that notwithstanding, she had a high risk doctor and all that. The pregnancy went great, but I think that was kind of the first time where I was thinking like, oh, there could be more to this. Also, along with that, around that time, Andrea and I would talk about just kind of, talking about our future and what does our life look like? What is retirement? These things down the road. And she said, well, I don't know how long I'm going to have to live. And we'd have these really deep conversations about how she sometimes felt like a burden, and which I never saw that. I never saw it as a burden. It was always my joy. Like, I never felt that way at all, but that's how she was feeling. And so it's important to hear her and how she thought about that. And I would constantly reassure her that, no, this is life. I mean, this is mean to say, but any of us can get hit by a bus tomorrow, right? And so we don't know. And Andrea had, I think one of the reasons I fell in love with her, she had this unique outlook on life, especially in your 20s, right? Where the world's ahead of you and you got all this future. And she had this unique outlook of like, live every day. Like every day you wake up and you thank God it's a gift, and go live your best day. And I wasn't living my life like that. Like, so I think I learned that from her. And I know I didn't really answer your original question, but I think that's kind of when all that early on in our marriage, when we would talk about stuff, and then certainly having our first child with the medical things. And BJ, there were ups and downs. I mean, there were a couple trips to the ER, where we had to get her checked out. She had later on in life, she had a stroke, which we had to work through that. She had some precancer scares. So certainly the impact of, and not just the heart transplant, but I learned a lot about like the immunosuppressive medications and what that does to her immune system, how that makes her more vulnerable, like you were mentioning earlier, to germs and to, being sick. It was important for me to get my flu shot, right? I never really cared about myself in that way, but it was important for me to do those things, to protect her as well. So yeah, hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, it did. And now another thing I'm going to put I know I had my heart transplant while I was married to my wife, but when we first got married, she knew that I had heart difficulties from birth, and, heart issues were prevalent in my family. So when it was time for us to have a daughter, she was very worried about this. Did that worry you at all as you, went on your journey to find out you were going to be a father with Andrea?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if worry is the right word, BJ, but I think in the back of my mind there was always that kind of concern, but I also, again, with how infectious Andrea's zest for life was, it was always tempered by that. So I was never like a full blown anxiety or anything like that, but there was always a little extra caution, a little extra concern. And, I just, it just kind of worked its way into our lives and became, again, not a definition of our relationship by any means, but it was just a part of it. And parts of it were great because, again, the second chance at life, changing her perspective on life, which changed my perspective on life. So in a way that was a real gift. And certainly some challenges too, along the way.
Now in your relationship, when did I don't want to say the anvil hit you or whatever, but when did you really realize, okay, she had a heart transplant, things are all fixed, we're having a relationship, we're getting to know each other. When was that decisive moment was it when you had, when she got pregnant, or when did you really say, oh my God, this is a little bit more than I thought?
Yeah. So shortly after our first son was born, through some testing, she ended up with some precancer. And again, not to get too detailed, but the end result of that was her having to have a hysterectomy, and meaning no more children. And so that just that itself, I think, was, as you said, the anvil dropped there, because even through the pregnancy, it was a very positive thing. Like, hey, we're doing this. Hey, we've got good support, and we've got great doctors, and everything's going great. Even though it was a risk, but a year later, and we're dealing with this crisis. And it hit really hard because both of us wanted more children, right? We were both young and thought, hey, this is what we wish for our future. And also, her life was at risk. And I mean, that's why you do the testing, right? That's why you go in the 6-month checkups, and that's why you have those tests to catch that stuff early. But it was a drastic surgery to prevent that from happening again in the future. So I think that was kind of my first notion of that. And again, later on, she had a full-blown stroke about, I guess it was about 10 years after that. And so going through that was terrifying, absolutely terrifying to watch your wife go through that. And but again, they were all, she recovered completely from it. We have great medical care here in the Charlotte area. So she recovered quickly, but it just became incorporated into the story of our life. And I can't speak for her, but for me, BJ, it makes the life that you do have more rich, if that makes sense, or more like precious, right? We don't, none of our days are guaranteed. We all know that, but even more so when you're facing some of these really significant health crises. So those lows and those tough times, made the good times even more joyous, I guess. I don't know if that makes sense. But.
Yeah. No. So when you did decide to marry, did you realize that, the job of caregiver was really a job, or was it still, I love this woman, I want to marry her? Because that's another thing. I don't think a lot of people that aren't involved in the transplant world does not realize what a spouse goes through as far as the caregiving side of it. Of course, you missed the initial surgery, but you have learned, as you said, going through all these ups and downs, that the caregiver is definitely high end. It's a lot on a caregiver. Yeah. And I see that in my own wife. I mean, yeah, she is always there by my side. She's always taking care of me. And I know that, she has sacrificed a lot in our marriage, things maybe she would like to do, or places we would have liked to gone, or things we'd have liked to done that she never got to do. We never get to do because of the transplant situation.
Yeah, for sure. And, certainly early on, I use the word naive because I probably was naive, but, I took my vows seriously, to love each other, for better and worse. And I looked at those times as those were the worst times, and we'll have some better times and back and forth. But, I think early on, I didn't even have a sense of the caregiving aspect. Certainly, I will say, with discussions with her mom and dad, because they had been with her through the transplant and were there every day by her side, and had experienced that firsthand. I got many, what do you say, maybe warnings? I guess that's a good word to use.
Yeah, I think you got it right on.
From her dad of like, you need to make sure that you're up for this and that you're going to take care of, this is our daughter, and I'm like, of course, having no idea what that meant. Right. But I'm like, of course I will. And, the tough thing about caregiving, BJ, is that it's like, you're there for support, but I'm also married to a fiercely independent and intelligent and, just like, so it's not a matter of, oh, let me just hold your hand, let me do this for you. That's not how it works. It's a balance, right? It's a little bit of a dance. So not only am I having to be there and support her when we're going through these times, both physically, right? I mean, you have a surgery, you have recovery and things like that, but emotionally, but also at the same time respecting her independence and her, not smothering her with that. And that's a real, boy, I don't even know how to dive into that too much, but it's a real balance that you have to keep your eyes open, really listen, really pay attention. And, she was never, to me, BJ, she was never like a patient. She was always my wife. Like, and this is just what you do for your wife. And then she, of course, would always say, oh my God, you're putting in so much effort into this. And, and the burden word would come up again. It resurfaces every so often. Thankfully less now than it did early on, but I said, never a burden. I said, this is a relationship. This is how it works. And I'll have tough times and you'll be there for me. This is just how it works.
Maybe this is something good for you to talk about, because as a transplant patient myself, I feel that too. I go, man, I'm putting a lot of burden on my wife and my 2 kids and my family. But like you say, to you, it's part of being married and part of a relationship. So maybe you could speak to that to other transplant patients, and maybe, people that have that feeling like, oh, I'm just such a burden. I'm such a burden to my husband or to my wife. What would your answer be to that? Because you've lived through it. And I think the direction you were going, you're pretty well kind of explaining, that it's not. And maybe more people should realize this.
I think that is a really good point, BJ, because, looking at it from the other side of the fence here of being a, support person and a caregiver, that word burden, it just rubs me the wrong way, because it's like, no, this is, Team Rob and Team Andrea, like that we're in this stuff together, and stuff is all the stuff, right? And this is one of the things that we have to go through together. And so it's never, I never saw it as a burden. And if you're in that situation where you're a caregiver of somebody, you'll see that as well. Like it's just a natural, like this is what needs to be done. This is what we need to do today. Oh, we're in with the doctor. I need to listen and take some notes. And it's just, you're just there for your person, and just like they're there for you. And again, regardless of that, I think on the caregiving side, it's important. This is my own experience I'm sharing here, but I think it's important to learn the medical stuff, but not to get too overwhelmed or too deep into it. You're not a doctor, you're not a medical professional. And so I've learned all about, Andrea's medicines that she has to take and the different tests and things like that, but I'm not an expert. So that I would say, making sure you take care of yourself is really important. And whatever that looks like for you, like for some people, it might mean, taking a break, going for a walk, might mean getting maybe some therapy, right, to help with the mental stress, whatever that looks like, talking to your priest, like make sure you're taking care of your own needs, because you're not a good caregiver if you're not taking care of yourself too. And then also, I am very blessed with in-laws and with extended family and friends that are there, but you always need to ask for help when you need it. It's like you've got this whole community of people that will do anything to help your person, and you don't want to sit there and just go it alone. Like ask for help when you need it. But yeah, never ever have I felt like a burden. And I'll tell you, BJ, the longer we've been married, the less that word comes up. So I'm really glad that we've kind of evolved through that.
Now, I don't know if you've had any health issues at all, but I know that my wife battled breast cancer a few years ago. And to me, that was another awakening experience, because I was always the person in the bed and she was always, there on my side. And all of a sudden I had to be at her side. And I'll admit it, I was the first to say, I do not like this side of the bed. I want to be where you are laying. I do not want to be sitting on this side of the bed. I am so much more comfortable on that side of the bed.
Yeah, that's a good point, right? Role reversal, and for sure. And I've had, as I'm getting older, I've had a few surgeries and some health situations, and nothing as significant as what Andrea has gone through, but. The kind of interesting thing is she's just dove in head first. Like she's like, "Oh yeah, I'm taking care of you." Like it's like it's my turn, and no one's keeping score, but she jumps into that with a zest. And so, but yeah, it is strange to be on. I've been the helper for so long, and then when I needed the help, it was she was on the other foot, and it was a bit of a challenge. So again, the benefit of being married for 26 years is we've evolved through a lot of that stuff. And so now, regardless of who has an issue or not, it's just the other person jumps in and we're there for each other.
And how's things been? How's life been recently? Because I forget now, I had her on a few months ago, but what is she like? 28 years? How far is she out now?
30
years.
30, it's going to be 30 years in August, BJ. 30 years. Yeah.
I'm happy with my 23 here. I think it is going on 24. Hope I can catch up to her, but I'm a much older guy than she is. So I don't know, but I hope you rock it out another 30 years. That'd be great. Absolutely.
Yeah. We're going to take ourselves a little trip. She's always wanted to go to the national parks in California. So that's her way. I said, hey, whatever you want to do, we're going to do it. It's a big milestone. And so that's her way. And again, it just exemplifies her zest for life of like, you've been given this opportunity, just go live it and go explore and experience things and love and laugh and cry, like all the things that we were meant to do as human beings. And she's gotten 30 more years to do all of those things. So, yeah.
Awesome. How's your child doing? Everything good there? And
yeah, he's great. And so that actually brings up a good point, BJ. So one of the things with her medically, they're not really sure how she ended up needing a heart transplant. Like it wasn't really clear about, was it a viral thing? Was it an inherited thing? So early on, we were super cautious about our son's health. We took him to a cardiologist when he was like 2 years old, a little unusual, but yeah, we were, one thing we didn't want to do is to have him develop something, and not be aware of it. So, but knock on wood. Yeah. So no health issues, strong, healthy young man now, not a kid anymore. But yeah, and he's just been a huge blessing in our life. And again, watching him grow up as well, it's like, that's what this is all about. This is the whole point of the exercise of going through these things, and you get to see this on the other side. So, but yeah, he's healthy. And again, I retired last year, so that gives us even more time now for doing the things that we love to do. And BJ, it doesn't have to be like big extravagant things, but we love just, trying a new place for dinner, going to a new show in town or whatever, just new ways to learn things and spend time with each other. So
awesome. Well, I never met you or Andrea, but I know that I've talked to her a few times, and she does sound like a Spitfire. So, I think you're doing a great job there, Rob. I really do.
Spitfire is a great word to use. I'm gonna steal that one from you, because that is, very apropos. Yeah.
And if you ever, if you two ever get back down to the Orlando area, please look me up, because I love for, you two and me and the wife to get together and have dinner or something and just share some war stories, maybe.
We'd love that. It's always great meeting up with folks, and again, sharing those stories, and a lot of similarities and a lot of differences. So yeah, a lot more to learn.
Like I said, I really like the angle that she had her transplant before the two of you met, which I think is it says a lot for you too, because there's a lot of people, Rob, and I don't care what you want to say, there's a lot of people that would have gotten to maybe the first bump or saw the first bump in what transplant life is all about and said, okay, I'm back to California. It was nice to meet you, but I'm out of here. So yeah. I appreciate, you hanging in there, and that tells me a lot about you, Rob.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, BJ. And I also believe that, again, when things are meant to be, they're meant to be. And, there's no deterring me at that point. And, if it wasn't meant to be, then it wouldn't have worked out. So, or she would have found something in me that was like, nope, not going to be with him either. So it's just, sometimes things happen. And as Andrea likes to say, things happen for a reason.
Yep.
That's one of her mantras. So, yeah.
Now, you didn't know a lot about, organ donation, obviously, when you first met. How you were a young man, just, getting out of the Marines. And so what have you learned about organ donation, and how thankful are you to that family who said yes?
Oh my God, that's a whole topic in and of itself. I knew nothing about organ donation, other than I think I was an organ donor. I think, I was at the DMV, and they're like, oh, do you want to be an organ donor? I'm like, sure. I don't know what that means, but sure. That sounds like a good thing. And since meeting Andrea, she's been involved in different organizations, American Heart Association, CORE down in Florida, and spreading that word. And I have been right there along with her to help spread that word about what it means to be an organ donor, how many people's lives one person can save. And at the same time, it is I want to find the right word here. It is a humbling thing to know that there's a family out there. Pardon me.
And not a problem.
It's a really deep topic. To know that there's a family out there that had to lose someone, and but at the same time they made this miraculous choice to allow someone else to carry on with their life. So I know Andrea and myself are just eternally grateful for Andrea's donor. His name's Michael, and his family, that they made that heart-wrenching and also incredibly generous choice so that someone else could continue on. So yeah, I don't know what else to say about that. It's just
have you all had
it's a really hard topic to talk about.
Have you ever all had a chance to meet him, or not him, but his family?
Yes. Yeah. That was, quite a few years ago. Actually, we were still in Orlando, and we had a chance to meet up with his mom, and I believe it was his aunt as well. And so we met a couple times. Andrea has kept in touch with them over the years, and so it's been. I don't know. I don't even want to speak to what their reaction, but for Andrea, I think it was very important that she thank them in person, let them know how appreciative she was and how thankful she was that they made this choice on that particular horrible day to do that.
Any last things maybe I forgot to ask, or anything you want to get out there before we let you go, Rob?
Any last things? We've talked about a lot of different things, but I would just say, I guess, to anyone listening out there that is in my situation of being a caregiver, just know that it is just the most rewarding thing. There are highs, there are lows, but over this last 26 years, like, we've built this marriage, we've created a family, we've had all these challenges, we've had all these experiences. And, the transplant made it possible to do that, but it's like our love and specifically Andrea's resilience and all that are what's really carried us through. And BJ, I appreciate you being a voice out there too, and spreading this message and awareness and sharing these stories with everyone as well. I think it's really important that people have a better understanding of what this looks like. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Rob, for sharing your incredible story with us today on the Gift of Life podcast. And be sure to join us each week for a new heartfelt episode. And if you have a transplant story, please email us, giftoflifepodcast@gmail.com. Again, that's giftoflifepodcast@gmail.com. Follow us on Facebook, and don't forget to like and share this episode with family and friends. And we would appreciate your 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform. Reminder, my memoir, More Parts Than a Chicken Nugget, isn't just a medical story. It's a story of my life and my survival story, filled with humor, hope, and heart. It'll make you laugh, maybe even cry. You won't want to miss it. Pick it up today on Amazon. More Parts Than a Chicken Nugget. Another podcast you might enjoy is myself and former radio partner Bill Stevens. BJ and Bill, the podcast, all on the Podcast Playground Network. And we want to thank them for making this podcast possible. Until next time, I'm BJ Odom. Thank you so much for being a part of our journey and reminding us all to appreciate each and every day and to treasure the extraordinary gift of life.
He was running on empty, heart fading fast. Doctor said, man, you ain't gonna last. But a stranger's kindness, a gift so true, turned the night sky into something new. He got a second chance, he got a brand new spark, like a freight train rolling back from the dark. Gift of life, let the story be told. One heart beats, another takes hold. Give a little, save a soul. Ain't no greater rock and roll. 15 years later, the road got rough. The fight ain't over when the climb is tough. Needed a kidney, the race was on. Another hero stepped up, kept him strong. Every breath he takes is a tale of hope. One life saved, another can cope. Gift of life, let the story be told. One heart beats, another takes hold. Give a little, save a soul. Ain't no greater rock and roll. Doctor's hands, a donor's grace, running on down to a brand new place. Second chances don't come twice, but when they do, man, they feel so nice. So let's spread the word, let the people know. One yesterday lets a miracle grow. You don't need wings just to save a man, just a little love, a helping hand. Gift of life, Let the story be told. One heart beats, another takes hold. Give a little, save a soul. Ain't no greater rock and roll. BJ still rocking, still standing tall, thanks to the ones who gave it all. Gift of life, hear the sound. Pass it on, pass it down. The Gift of Life podcast, hosted by BJ Odom. Listen now.